It's time for Mr. Fundamental!
Presented by no one.
The first few days of NBA trades have been crazy, and it got crazier with the Bucks acquiring Jrue Holiday and Bogdan Bogdanovic. I was doubtful that the Bucks had enough assets to make a splash, let alone two huge acquisitions. While these additions definitely helped with retaining Giannis and improved their on-court production on the defensive end, it didn't solve all their problems. Anyways, let's get into how Holiday and Bogdanovic would fit on the Bucks. The most notable thing is shooting. This was a huge problem for the Bucks in the playoffs when opponents left their average shooters open. On this pick and roll with Giannis, the Magic collapsed hard on this action. Both weak side defenders have 2 feet in the paint, which leads to a kick out and a miss from 3. Here it is again. The Bucks couldn't capitalize on a Magic miscommunication, and this simply won't win them playoff games. Looking at the Bucks' incoming and outgoing players in the trade, only Hill was a deadly shooter from 3, while Ersan wasn't part of their playoff rotation. Both Bogdanovic and Holiday are good and consistent shooters from deep, while the latter makes up for his average efficiency with volume. So instead of missing these open threes when Giannis collapses defense, they now have proven shot makers taking their spots to make the defense pay. Through no fault of his own, Bledsoe was a huge factor in the Bucks' early playoff exit. He's similar to Giannis, where he's at his best having the ball in his hands and slashing towards the rim. That skill set was great to have when Giannis was off the floor, and his occasional jumper could get by during the regular season. In the playoffs, Bledsoe played more besides Giannis, because you gotta have your best players on the floor most of the time. The biggest problem is that teams would go under the screen in the playoffs, and dare him to pull up for the jumper. This takes away the ball from Giannis, and often results in a miss. Again, no offense to Bledsoe, but his shooting isn't a strong suit, evident by some of these horrible misses. Then there's also this one as well. Both Bogdanovic and Holiday's jumper would be respected more, and just look at what happens when a capable shooter in Hill initiates the action instead. The defender goes over the screen, creating a 4 and 5 advantage for the Bucks, and Giannis gets the and one with an athletic play. While Holiday isn't a 45% shooter from deep, his jumper is more respectable than Bledsoe's, so if the defender goes under the screen, he could make them pay at a better rate. More often than not, teams would go over the screen against Holiday, which forces extra help one pass away. Instead of passing to average or below average shooters, a more consistent shooter in Bogdanovic will be the one knocking down these shots. Similarly, Bogdanovic will have the same effect. Defender goes over the screen, and the pocket pass will get Giannis another athletic finish. Moving on to another part of shooting. You might know where this is going if you've seen my Bucks secret weapon video just before the playoffs. The Bucks offense relies on Giannis driving kicks, or just some simple action like these to get the defense slightly out of place, either generating a bucket at the rim or from deep. Without Giannis, the bench run a little more action and relied on their 5-out. Here's a double screen for Korver. When he turns it down, Matthews uses it and Pat Bev is out of position. That's all they need to get the defense one step behind, and they get a basket at the rim. The Bucks also do a good job in getting into new actions after the first option is denied. It's usually a handoff, and when DiVincenzo cuts, it forces the weak side help and they get a wide open corner 3. These handoffs happen so quickly that it usually causes a defensive lapse. The switch here is the easy solution for the Nuggets, but it can't react in time, leaving Korver open from deep. Here's another example. The handoff gets Matthews just enough separation to catch and shoot from deep. Interchangeability between players is another strength they had. Like here, Connaughton is the one handing off to Ersan, who pulls the trigger from deep. When Middleton struggles to create, they reset with an Ersan screen. Because of the 5-out and the Bucks players' willingness to pull the trigger from deep, it forced a switch, and the Wolves had to foul and slip. The keyword here is the willingness to pull the trigger, and not consistently knocking down threes. DiVincenzo and Connaughton execute a handoff. The Magic gave him a sliver of daylight, but couldn't make them pay. Since the Bucks shooters can't score in these situations, at least not as effective as a Giannis drive, defenses continuously give them these kind of shots. The Bucks' willingness to pull up in these actions is partly because of analytics, but also Matthews, DiVincenzo, and Connaughton aren't great creators off the dribble, so these quick triggers with a sliver of daylight could be the best look they could get. When Giannis run this with a respectable shooter, the results were totally different. Now you replace them with 2 good shooters and creators off the dribble, the defense can't sag back anymore. Same thing again, Holiday could take advantage of the space he gets during the switch and drain the 3. This will be huge for Giannis in the playoffs. He was relegated to a non-shooting big man role and kept running handoffs. It worked with players like Korver and Middleton, but not so much with their average shooters, since defenders would happily go under the screen. Holiday and Bogdanovic's reputation as a scorer is already enough to force the defense to go over the screen. With Middleton, Holiday, and Bogdanovic on the floor, Giannis can now hand off in any direction to bend the defense out of shape. Moving on to another change, which is having 2 additional 3-level scorers. Middleton was the only one the Bucks had to create something late in the possession. This makes his regular season efficiency all the more impressive. When the playoffs came about, his shot wasn't falling, but the Bucks had no one else to turn to. I mean, Giannis is great, but post-up takes time to get into, and his isolations welcome sagging defense, which is also dependent on the team's ability to space the floor. The additions of Holiday and Bogdanovic are going to help out Middleton's responsibility to isolate. In turn, Holiday and Bogdanovic will be more efficient players and benefit from the gravity of Giannis and Middleton. When it's crunch time, the Bucks could only rely on Middleton, but it just got that much more dangerous with 2 more clutch scorers on the floor. What makes the acquisition of Holiday better is that he can replicate the same impact as Bledsoe. The Bucks valued Bledsoe's defensive prowess in the backcourt to complement their stifling interior defense. Now they won't miss a beat with a 2-way star in Holiday. He's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, but also have the size and strength to play a part in the Bucks' defensive scheme. That's something we'll get into near the end. Offensively, he could act as their engine for the offense when Giannis sits, similar to what they did with Bledsoe. Whether it's getting to the rim or pulling up, this is going to open up the Bucks' drive and kick offense. His respectable jumper makes him a better fit next to Giannis, which is exactly the upgrade they needed to get deeper into the playoffs. Bogdanovic is the worst defender in the star-studded lineup, but he's not necessarily a minus on that end. At 6'6", he has the size and also the basketball IQ to be a passable defender. The analytics aren't in favor for Bogdanovic on the defensive end, but we've also got to consider how much of that could be attributed to the Kings team that's been bottom 10 in defense throughout his career. Offensively, I see him playing a similar role as Malcolm Brogdon did before, but with a better pull-up game. He can spot up and space the floor on the weak side, act as a secondary or tertiary initiator to create for others, and also have the ability to attack off the catch or off the dribble when defenders run him off the line. Like I said in my previous video, Brogdon was a great fit on the Bucks, so getting Bogdanovic is like fixing the previous mistake, but it was a very draft pick costly mistake. These 2 trades are a necessary move to show Giannis they're going full in with him. They gave up a lot, but it won't matter if Giannis stays, which seems more and more likely now. The Bucks understood that their depth doesn't matter in the playoffs, so they sacrificed that and became a top-heavy team. The Bucks could still shore up their depth with ring chasers or cheap vets, maybe a J.R. Smith or James Ennis. But this brings us to another issue they need to address, and that's their defensive scheme. The inability to adapt defensively was a big part of the playoff exit. Even when they played Giannis as center, their roster didn't have enough experience with switching. They're trending the right way with Brook Lopez and Giannis as only players on the roster that mans the center spot. Their next step is adding capable wings to deploy more Giannis as center lineups, like Wilson Chandler, Luke Richard Maamute, or Jeff Green. At the end of the day, their defensive scheme is going to come down to Mike Budenholzer's decision. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Let me know down below what you think this new Bucks team could accomplish next season, and maybe what moves they still need to make this offseason. Make sure to drop a like on the video, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.